And how is everybody doing? I'm Jay Elsen. He's Jason Andera, and this is the Varsity Sports Semifinal Preview show. And, you know, we're one step away from championship football, Jason.
You know what? The intensity gets ratcheted up each and every round of the playoffs. The semifinals, maybe the most intensity because every team wants to have at least a chance to get to the Andera Center or the Dakota Dome to get on that big stage to represent their communities.
Absolutely. 44 teams left competing for one of 11 titles between North and South Dakota. We will preview all 22 games. And here we go. We kick it off in South Dakota Class 11 AAA, where we've got an exact repeat of last year's Final Four. Not only that, but both games are rematches from the regular season. Let's start with Gorman at Lincoln. They first squared off back on September 6th, with Lincoln claiming a 34-29 decision. But since then, what's changed for these two teams?
Well, for Lincoln, what has changed is they've lost their probably the best offensive lineman that they've ever had at Lincoln, and Drew Peters. That really is going to make them suffer in the running game, although they've been doing pretty well with Braxton Large. He can definitely move the ball up and down the field. Gorman, on the other hand, a very young team back in August. A lot of these guys didn't have starts, didn't have experience. They did a nice job coming back in that first game against Lincoln, where they almost tied it up late in the game, and they went to the passing game to do that with Luke Fritch and Jack Peary. Those guys, those juniors, are now very seasoned and can be depended on. And if the weather's okay, they're going to be throwing the ball a little bit against Lincoln, just like they did to catch up in that first-round game.
And when you think Gorman is overmatched coming into a football game, Steve Keeter and the Knights find a way to keep it competitive. You look at this Lincoln matchup in the regular season. You also look their regular season game against Roosevelt. Tight one. They really had the Riders on the ropes in that one, gave it away late.
Let's be clear. These four teams that are left in AAA are very close. It could go any direction, and I would not be surprised. We have a tough job of picking games here, but nobody can tell what's going to happen on Friday night at Howard Wood Field when Lincoln goes up against Gorman. Two very talented teams.
All right, well, how about Brandon Valley and Roosevelt? These two teams have had some high-scoring affairs recently, and that includes Roosevelt's 42-34 win in the season opener over the Lynx. Are you expecting this one to follow that same kind of path?
I think it's going to go a little bit differently. Both defenses have improved very much since the beginning of the year. Brandon Valley's coming off their two best defensive performances in a row, 2 weeks ago against Harrisburg, last week against Sioux Falls, Washington. And Roosevelt, on the other hand, they started out the year, there was 5 starters on the team that did not play. And since then, their youth have really taken over. They've got 10 out of their 11 starters right now are underclassmen on that Roosevelt defense, and the same thing as Gorman. Those underclassmen have really grown up throughout the year. So I think it's a little lower scoring game than we're used to. Plus, with the wind and the elements, the passing will not be as big of a factor for Brandon Valley. For them, though, they've got Riley Franzen who can run the ball, and that's the difference. Brandon Valley is definitely a balanced team, where in the past they've been really, really a pass-heavy team.
One of the big differences for Roosevelt coming into this game, obviously, especially compared to their first matchup with Brandon Valley, no Taryn Christian.
No Taryn Christian, and to the outside, that looks like a huge loss. But to the inside, those people at Roosevelt, they look at Jet Thune and say, that guy's not that far behind what Taryn Christian brought them. I mean, from a fear standpoint, you definitely fear Taryn Christian a lot more. From a production standpoint, Jet Thune is not that far behind.
Absolutely. All right, well, moving on to Class 11 AA now. Yankton has been rolling. They've outscored their opponents 112-8 over their last 3.5 games. That stretch includes a 31-8 win over Harrisburg on October 17th. What do the Tigers have to do to slow down this Yankton team?
Well, the Tigers are going to have to play mistake-free football. I talked to Brandon White and asked him that exact same question, and he said, we cannot turn the ball over. We've got to get Kabambi going. We know that they're going to stack the box for Kabambi, but we've got to run him anyway, and that's what he's been doing this whole playoff. I mean, he's been running against 8- and 9-man boxes, and then Devin Theelgis is going to have to come up with some big catches, and obviously they're going to not have to turn the ball over. So that is the stress point this week for the Tigers. Don't turn the ball over.
All right, how about that other matchup? Here is a young team. Sometimes young teams hit their stride at about this time of the season. With that in mind, do the 3-5 Governors have a chance to beat the 6-2 Brookings Bobcats?
You know what? This one comes down to running the football, and Pierre That is the one little weakness they might have, is stopping the run. They haven't tackled quite as well as they'd like to. That's exactly what Jason Poppinga said last week. It's the one thing we need to work on is tackling, and it's not the right team to work on against is the Brookings Bobcats, who have Mikey Daniel, 1,200 yards, 19 touchdowns. Gerald Maxwell, 600-plus yards, 10 touchdowns. Dayton Bird, 450 yards and 6 touchdowns. All three of those guys are averaging over 8 yards per carry. Tough task for the Governors.
Certainly one thing right there, that rush offense for Brookings versus rush defense for Pierre, that jumps off the page for you as you compare these teams down the stretch for this matchup. So interesting. Going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. All right, well, our Varsity Sports semifinal preview is just getting started. Our spotlight will stop on the much-anticipated rematch between Fargo-Davies and South a little bit later. But up next, we'll make our way through the rest of South Dakota's playoff brackets.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back to Varsity Sports. Well, Monday night, classes 11A through 9B finished up their quarterfinal round, and now they prepare to play on Saturday for the right to move on and play for their respective titles at the Dakota Dome. And we pick it up now in Class 11A with the semifinal matchups. Rivals will reunite in Del Rapids as the Quarriers play host to West Central. Always fun when these two get together, Jason. The last time back on October 10th when Del Rapids pulled away in the second half for a 34-25 win.
Maybe one of the best rivalries we have in all of South Dakota. These two towns have been fighting for this 11A title for many years, and it's going to come down to running and run defense once again. And like we said, second half, it was all Del Rapids. West Central feels like they belong this year.
Riley Schmidt probably going to play a big role in
Man,
this
he's
one.
just getting better and better. Huge night for him on Monday.
Meanwhile, in 11A's other semifinal, Madison hosts Hot Springs. Awfully tough task for the Bison in this one.
Yeah, Madison has been an unbelievable team, have won all of their regular season games against South Dakota teams over the past 2 years. And look at last year versus this year. Everybody remembers how great that team was last year. Well, this year's team is right alongside there. Maybe not quite as many passing yards or rushing yards, but their points per game and their defensive points allowed per game, very close. I think they've got a definite inside track to get back to the Dome against Hot Springs.
Class 11B, McCook Central Montrose made it to the Dome and almost won a title in 2011, but to make it back, the Fighting Cougars are going to have to find a way to knock off one of the best teams in recent 11B history. Parkston looking awfully tough, particularly, Jason, on the defensive side of things.
Yeah, defensively, you see some of the impressive shutouts they put together earlier in the year against Bonham. Twice they've shut out Canton. These are playoff teams they're beaten, by the way. Tri-Valley, they only allowed 6 points. An unbelievable defense this year. We always talk about West Dvorak and how he can throw the ball and mix it up with Miles Semler and those guys, but the defense is really what's got it done for Parkson. McCook Central Montrose, great season for them, but they have their work cut out.
They've got a good defense as well. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't think they've run up against a team like Parkston at all this season, even though they are coming off a good road win in the quarterfinals over Aberdeen Roncalli. All right, well, Groton upset Custer on Monday to earn a trip to Rapid City to take on St. Thomas More. The Cavaliers have rolled through their first 2 postseason games, scoring big wins over Bennett County and Bonhomme.
This is a team over the last 3 games, they've really gotten the offense clicking. And despite the weather, Matt Ismo's been able to throw the ball. I mean, this is a team, I think it's 142 points over their last 3 games. So watch out for that offensive explosion. Sets up really nice for the Cavaliers to earn a trip back to the Dome.
All right, let's move into the 9-man ranks now. And starting in 9AA, Kimball White Lake comes into the semifinal round. They'll travel to Woonsocket, Wessington Springs, Sanborn Central. But Kimball White Lake may be the biggest upset of the postseason, or one of them anyway, by knocking off Arlington on Monday night.
And their strategy was clearly give the ball to Ethan Galkey. This guy carried the ball 55 times on 67 offensive plays. Comprehend that. I mean, what do you think Woonsocket, Wessington Springs, Sanborn Central is going to do to get ready? I mean, look for Ethan Galkey, right? He piled up 371 yards and 3 touchdowns. So if they can stop him, they've got a chance. These two teams did face each other earlier in the year. And speaking of the Blackhawks, they've got a great quarterback in Tucker Kingsbury, and he gets things done through the air and with his legs.
Thoughts on that other semifinal duel traveling to Gregory?
Gregory, definitely the toughest team in this class left, the only undefeated team left. Duel's had a great run. Lance Eide frequently goes over 200 or 300 yards rushing, but I think this is the end of the road for the Cardinals.
Class 9A now, 4 teams left, all of them unbeaten.
Yeah, how many times do you get a Final Four with all the teams unbeaten? You look for the players to watch here. Alcester Hudson's quarterback, Grant Johnson, is an animal as a junior, but Howard is just everything, all as good as advertised. We all talk about, the career rushing leader in 9-man football and Luke Laudenberg, but Jordan Genslinger, Jordan Cooley, great complements to that offense. It's going to be tough to beat Howard. And on the other side, Wolsey-Wessington, it's a team that I've been high on all season long. Get this, Hunter Johnson and Lorenzo Williams have each run for at least 100 yards in every single game this year. They don't pass the ball a lot, but they can definitely run.
And Phillip out there kind of all by themselves west of the river and 10-0 themselves.
We don't know how good they are.
They don't get seen a lot. Finally, in Class 9B, some good teams here. Hamlin will host Harding County. Hamlin, of course, coming up just short of the Dome last year. They want to get back.
Yeah, these are two teams familiar with the Dome, but Brody Grantham and Hamlin are just too good. They're way better than the rest of this field. You look on the other side with Faulkton area and Canastota, two teams we might not have expected at the beginning of the year, but both have some great athletes. This one will be a good contest to see who can make it to the Dome.
All right, well, the North Dakota playoff picture came into focus last weekend. We're going to look at the Final Four for all four of those classes when we come back.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back. We've got two more classes to preview for semifinal football in North Dakota, starting in Class A here, Jason. And in the first of two semifinals, Park River FL travels to Larimore, a couple of 9-1 teams.
Yeah, and they faced off earlier this year. Larimore got the best of them, 29-13 back on September 12th. Larimore features a great running back in Jake Peterson, 1,412 yards, 17 touchdowns. This team has only attempted 57 passes, so look for Larimore to go to the ground and win this game. On the other hand, Park River FL, their coach Robert Gall said, we've got some big linemen that have really improved since the beginning of this year, and they paved the way for Caden Hunter, Abe Hankey at quarterback. They do pass the ball a little bit, so weather could be a factor here.
The other semifinal, Killdeer, coming off a win over an undefeated rugby team last week, and have to try and do it again, and maybe even a tougher task here with Hazen. This team has been on quite a roll for the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, Hazen now 30 wins in a row. It's always tough to beat the same team twice, but if anybody can, it might be the Bison. Connor Dahl has done everything for this team, passing the ball, running the ball. They're tough to beat. He's got 854 yards passing, 893 yards rushing, so he could go over 1,000 on both sides. Killdeer, on the other hand, has a great quarterback as well in Trenton Rohr. This game was close. At the end, Hazen did pull away the first time around.
In the 9-man ranks, you've got 4 teams left, 2 losses between them. Lemoore LM, 10-1 on the season, has to go to Cavalier. This is a team that looks virtually untouchable.
They do. It's such a tough draw to play Cavalier. This is a team that can roll it up on you in a hurry if you make a mistake. But Anthony Olson's going to give it a try for Lemoore LM. This guy ran for 412 yards, 7 touchdowns last week, and he has improved a ton since the beginning of the year. He keeps getting stronger and stronger, so this is going to be a big test for that Cavalier defense, but they're loaded. 3 guys went over 100 yards last week. Tough team to beat.
10-1 TGU travels to Shiloh Christian. Shiloh Christian has been on the cusp of doing something special for the last couple of years, and it seems like maybe this is their year right now.
Yep, Shiloh's never taken it to that next level, getting it all the way to the Dakota Bowl. This year could be their year. Their line has improved. A.J. Dale does it great on offense and defense, but really when you talk to Fanon Barker, the head coach, he says it's all about our lines, and actually the opposing coach for TGU, Scott Thorson, says the same thing. Their line is very good, but Eli Luna's going to give it a shot.
Eli Luna has been an awfully good player for TGU for the last few years as well. All right, well, with so many good teams still standing, the games are getting tougher and tougher to pick, but that's never stopped us before. Jandy and I are going to offer up our picks for the top 4 semifinal matchups right after this.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back to Varsity Sports, our semifinal preview show. And we close this show, as we have all season, with another round of Varsity Sports Pigskin Pick'em. And the straight-up head-to-head in the Pick'em is dead even, 31-9 apiece.
It's all about upsets for Jay.
Upsets have been the difference.
No more upsets from here on out, though. We just pick them straight up. Let's see what happens. I've got 2 weeks to catch up. 2
more weeks. Going to be tough. Not going to give it to you. So, All right, let's start. 4 games, 2 in North Dakota, 2 in South Dakota, in AAA in North Dakota. Let's look at that South Davies game. There's a lot of people looking forward to this one.
All right, well, we already previewed the game. Not much more to say. It could go either way. I just said that in a couple segments ago, but I believe that Fargo Davies will get it done. Fargo South is really focused on revenge here, but Davies has enough firepower and a little bit more defense. I'm going to go with the Eagles.
They do have a little bit more defense. I will give you that. But the way they beat South the first time, I think you have to admit, was a little gimmicky. A couple of onside kicks. And, part of it's strategy, and you execute it, and you deserve credit for that. They answered the bell
every time, though.
They did, and I will give them credit for that, but I don't see a way that James Johannesson allows his team to come up short of the Dakota Dome. Him and Ty Brooks both. I think the top 2 playmakers in the state of North Dakota play for Fargo South. I'm going to give them the edge just based on that. In Class A, Killdeer at Hazen. Again, Killdeer coming off a win over an undefeated rugby team last week. Hazen, the defending champs, haven't lost in a long, long time.
Haven't lost in a long time. No reason they should lose this one on their home field. The games keep getting tougher for Hazen, but they keep rising up to the challenge. Connor Dahl, Hunter Steffen, done a great job all season long. I'm going to go with the Bison.
I'm going to go with the Bison as well. I like what Killdeer obviously did last week, prove that they can go on the road and win against an undefeated team, but Hazen is a bit different animal. This is a team that's really been on a roll, and they've answered the challenge every time it's been put in front of them. I like them to get back to the Dakota Bowl. In South Dakota Class 11 AAA, Brandon Valley at Roosevelt. It's a rematch from the opening week of the regular season. It was a shootout, but you don't think necessarily we're going to see that same kind of game this time?
Not 70-plus points. I think we might be in the 60s. We might be around there. But the passing, we're expecting 20-mile-an-hour winds at Howard Wood Field. That's going to shut down the passing game a little bit for Brandon Valley. Roosevelt's a little underrated. A lot of people jumping on that Lynx bandwagon. I think Roosevelt has improved enough on defense. They're formidable. They can stop the Lynx. And Jet Thune's done a tremendous job. I think the Riders sneak back into the Dakota Dome.
See, I think Jet Thune has done a very admirable job in replacing Terry Christian, but that's a big difference to not have Terry Christian out there leading your football team against this team with the way these two offenses match up with the opposing team's defense. Obviously, both of these teams are capable of piling up points. We've seen it the last couple of years. I like Brandon Valley in this game. I think they're going to beat the Sioux Falls School and get back to the Dome themselves. All right, finally, Class 11 AA, West Central at Del Rapids. Big rivalry matchup here.
Yeah, I think West Central, they're still the defending champs. They did lose a couple games. It was on them. But I think that they are great at adjusting. And I think they're going to adjust to what Del Rapids is throwing at them. It's going to be a really close game. Something weird's going to happen, and the Trojans are going to win.
Something weird will probably happen. It seems to every time these two teams get together. But while I agree with you that they are good at making adjustments, I don't think they will make the adjustment here. I think Riley Schmidt carries the Warriors back to the Dakota Dome.